Welcome to the sixth installment of Gamaliel's Organizing 101 series. I'm Reverend Cynthia Gerald, and I am the Senior Advisor for Funding Strategies and External Affairs. And for those of you who are joining us for the first time, or if you've seen other installments, I just want to remind you that the reason that we're doing this is because there are lots of questions out there about what community organizing is. And so we're attempting to share the stories of some of our best community organizers to give you some insight into the work that they do. I'm really pleased today that David Gerth, Reverend David Gerth, who is the Executive Director of Metropolitan Congregations United in the St. Louis, Missouri region, is with us today to share his experience and his journey into organizing. So David, thank you very much for being with us today. Would you share with folks a little bit more about your role in the network and some of your experience in this work?
Well, so right now I am the Executive Director of MCU and St. Louis Metropolitan Congregations United, and I have been working with Poncella Hardaway the last almost 3 years now as co-chair of what has been the state directors table, and I've been a trainer at the national level for a number of years. So I'm playing a bunch of different kind of roles within all of that, and kind of at the center of a team of people that are moving integrated voter engagement programs across the network. But I really started out as a member of a congregation, not ordained, actually had passed up ordination and moved on. And I learned to organize formally through Gamaliel as a member of a congregation, Pilgrim Congregational UCC in St. Louis. And that led me to be called to ordained ministry. And I thought I was going to organize, but I ended up pastoring and organized as a pastor. So as a layperson, as a pastor, as a professional paid organizer, I've been with the network for about 20 years.
Okay, so David, I know that there are a lot of pieces to your journey, and I know that just from knowing you for several years that you place high value on community organizing, in particular faith-based community organizing. Can you say a little bit more about your journey and the value that you see in community organizing?
Growing up, I was a child of a pastor. And so a lot of the people that I knew were also clergy, adults that I knew were clergy. And the ones that interested me the most were the ones that were getting into nitty-gritty community issues. And so I had this sense of community organizing, I think, without really knowing what it was. And my very first job out of college was in a neighborhood that was really built by people who shared my ancestry. They were German immigrants, and they had all done the white flight thing, almost all of them. And it was an all-Black neighborhood. And I got to experience the need for organizing because the neighborhood had been disinvested, was continuing to be disinvested. And there was not enough political power in the neighborhood to push back on that at all. And it's still where we are today. That neighborhood is in worse shape than it was those 30 years ago. But it really helped me to feel what the cost of not being organized can be. And then I've just had that experience over and over again in the neighborhoods where I've lived, going to the block unit associations, those sorts of things, and feeling like we don't have enough muscle to get just the respect, let alone the results that we're after. So that's the starting line for me, really.
Okay. So I know when we were talking earlier, you mentioned to me that this whole, so we talk a lot about the arts, attitudes, disciplines of community organizing, but we've added another layer, which I think is really sort of where you are in many ways. And that's this whole idea of a spirituality of organizing. Can you say more about that?
Yeah, I said, I kind of passed up the ordination path. I finished seminary and then worked in higher education, and actually kind of stopped going to church on a regular basis. And when we started going back, it was at Pilgrim, and the pastor who was there engaged us in a form of prayer that opened me to a deeper kind of prayer than I had ever been involved in. And that led me to an even deeper form of prayer. I was working at St. Louis University, and I got exposed to Ignatian spirituality. And that form of prayer invited me to do things that I never thought I would do. I was very, very Protestant, still am very, very Protestant, but I was praying the rosary. And for example, and But the part that was really, really helpful to me was learning to pray imaginatively into scripture. And it was Jesus and the Samaritan woman at the well. It's a long story. I won't tell it now, but it was that experience of entering into that story and having that woman, who is the first person in John's gospel to testify who Jesus is. She addressed me, and that let me hear Jesus. Now, a senior organizer once told me never tell this story because it sounds too woo-woo, but it's true. And you can hear it in your own way, right? But this is how I heard it. I heard Jesus say to me, David, you sound very good about the things you say you believe in. He said, the things you say you believe in. When are you going to start taking some risks? Now, I heard that as clearly as I'm listening to you, Cynthia. I heard Jesus say that. That's the one time in my life Jesus spoke that clearly to me. And he said, start taking some risks about the things you say you believe in. And so the spirituality of organizing for me is partly just listening to that voice, however it comes to you, whether it's the tradition of labor organizing or what your grandma taught you or some novel or a song, or whether it's the voice of God in your head, to listen to that. But then it's ultimately over and over again, especially in the last 10 years in this role at MCU, if I am not taking some risk, then I am not actually exercising any faith. I'm just controlling the outcomes the best I can. And so almost everything that's truly organizing is doing the very best you can to engineer the result you want, and then trusting that things are going to happen beyond the control of you or the people that are organized. Something magical will happen. If you just want to put it in strictly human terms, something magical will happen beyond what's on the agenda. But for me, it's spiritual. It's an experience of God. As much as I can experience God in the woods or in the sanctuary, there is another experience of God that happens in front of at the protest, in the hearing at the Capitol. There's a kind of risk that invites me to know that God is with me, pushing me, pulling me, supporting me, correcting me, that happens in this work. And it's thrilling when somebody that we're organizing has the same experience.
That's really, really powerful. I'm sitting here thinking about our own training. You know, we continue to train people that one of the qualities of a leader is actually being courageous and taking risks. But I love the beauty of what you're saying, connecting that to spirituality.
And breaking isolation, right? The human side of it is, a spiritual side is I got to count on God, but God is in the people around me.
Yeah.
And if I'm open to how God is sending me gifts and life rafts, then exciting things happen.
And I have to say, I think that's really evident in the way that you respond to the people around you, recognizing them as gifts, right? So I know there are lots of things you've learned over the years from organizing as an organizer, but what are a couple of learnings, one or two learnings that you would share with us?
I think it's true of organizers like it's true of preachers. You only have 3 sermons. Like, there's really only 3 things that you know. This is the main one that I think I've learned from the very beginning, when I was a layperson organizing, to when Sister Gail Gelker started kicking my tail when I was a brand new paid organizer. It's that you've got to decide what you're going to do, build a team of people who are committed to that same, like literally to the due date and the demands, and then move toward it. And I think I say this to new organizers all the time. At the end of a year, you will know if you're an organizer or not if you have had the experience of building something exciting, building a team, watching the team fall apart, rebuilding the team, setting the due date, watch everything fall apart, and still making something happen. If you can make something happen after everything goes wrong, then you will know you're an organizer. And what you have to be able to internalize is, that's just part of the game. That's the way it works. That's normal. And it's not that you forget about planning or forget about execution or forget about the spreadsheets, but at some point, it's about the magic and the wonder and the persistence and feeling in your bones that when it feels like it's done, that's when it's actually getting ready to break loose.
Okay. Thank you for that. So I want to ask you one last thing. We've got people who are watching that are folks who have invested in us, who are part of us. We've also got people watching, though, who are interested in investing in us, and that's why they're learning more about us. And we've got people out there who are also thinking about community organizing as a career path. What advice would you give to any or all of those groups of people about community organizing?
He's now very old school, but Paulo Freire is one of the people who crystallized the notion that the only way to learn anything is to do something and to reflect on it. And I think that both of those are really critical. And I know that I was really good at doing stuff sort of unreflectively. I still am, I guess, but especially when I was younger, and or just sitting and thinking. It's very important, I think, if you want to try organizing, I would say consider a year commitment or a 3-year commitment. Dive in and surround yourself with some risks that you want to take, a path that you want to be on, and a small handful of people that you can really trust, so that when things go wrong, you can talk through with them. Okay, does this tell me this is not for me? It's okay. I'm going to move on. Or to say, you're getting into the really hard stuff now. And if you can keep going, you're going to be excellent. I think it's to take the risks and to have some people around you who can help you discern, is this a path for me or not?
Thank you, David. And thank you very much for taking these few minutes to talk with the folks who are viewing today. For those of you who are watching today, again, this is the 6th installment. Next week, we will have our executive director, Anna Garcia Ashley, who will actually be sharing with us in the final installment of this particular series. So David, once again, thank you very much.
Thanks, Cynthia.